Hey, my name's Steven, and I've been running a video production company for the last 8 years, and today I want to talk to you about this bad boy, the Lumix S1RII. And this is my 4-month review for the Lumix S1RII. The main thing about this camera, in my opinion, is the special sauce of the image. Something about this image just has some magic to it, but you probably can't see it through the YouTube compression. Yet it's one of my favorite images from any mirrorless camera I've ever owned. It's got this color fidelity and depth I could only credit to its sensor. This camera is rumored to have the Ronin 4D 8K sensor, and this is definitely one of my favorite aspects of this camera. Now, one of the main reasons I upgraded to the R2 from the S5 II is for low light. Even though its dual base ISO is 200 and 1000, when pitted up against other Lumix cameras with the same ISOs, it seems to be brighter. And I know what you're thinking. 1000 as its top base ISO? You can drop this camera into dynamic range expansion mode, and your dual base ISO now changes to 400 and 2000. But it adds a little bit more rolling shutter, which the camera suffers from in general. I'm guessing because of the 44 megapixel sensor, the higher ISOs seem to have a more pleasant, smaller grain. I've cranked this bad boy to 12,800 and been pretty pleased with the noise patterns because of the higher megapixel count. Now, since low light was one of the driving factors in me purchasing this camera, in came the Lumix S1RII, and just in time for me to miss my return window. And now the S1RII with the higher native ISO of 5000 and way less rolling shutter, it made me think, did I make a mistake buying the S1RII? Now, to be honest, rolling shutter is not a huge deal to me personally, but when it comes to anamorphic shooting, rolling shutter sucks and really shows in footage when you're shooting handheld. Because I was so excited for the R2's release and I had no idea they were going to release an S1RII, I pre-ordered the R2. And then the S1RII came out and I pre-ordered that. When I received the S1RII, I immediately fell in love with the camera. So right out of the gate, some of my complaints with the S1RII was its thermal management. It overheated really easily in sun, and freaking battery life for this thing. The battery life sucks really hard. This thing eats batteries. I use almost twice as much batteries compared to the S1RII when you're in video mode. If you get the S1RII for video, I highly suggest you get an external battery or get a battery grip. Now, when it comes to overheating between the S1RII and the S1RII, once you put a CF Express in these two babies, they burn up. And it really levels out the playing field for how much they can sustain direct sun on hot days. So lately this summer, when using these new S1 cameras, if it's 80 degrees or more and I'm in direct sun for a long period of time, I usually take out the CF Express card and use an SSD or just the SD card. But even if you take out the CF Express card, the S1RII in direct heat gets cooked. All right, I'm testing the S1RII and the S1RII in heat. I'm seeing which one will last longer with just an SD card. I've got the thermal setting management on high and I have the fan on fast. I'm using improved SD cards. Right now it is 83 degrees. The UV index is at 6. And I'm in direct sun. I am shooting at 24 frames a second. 4K. All right, with the S1RII, we are at 11 minutes of recording and we're already getting the overheating sign, and we're getting nothing at 11 minutes with the S1RII. 20 minutes and 14 seconds overheat timer just came on, and we haven't even used 1 bar of battery. One thing I love about the S1RII. So on paper, the S1RII seems like a clear winner for video over the S1RII. Yet I find myself still drawn to the image of the R2. Now, it's been over 4 hot months using the R2 for weddings and live events, and I have yet to have this camera overheat on an actual job. With that said, I'm shooting a lot of 24 frames per second 4K. Because I've done a ton of testing not on a job and I've had it overheat, it makes me wary about how much I can push this camera on really hot days. For weddings, I use the S1RII a lot on a gimbal while using a sling to use the S1RII to get side angles. In shooting this way, I do have a lot of side-by-side comparisons with the S1RII and the S1RII as far as footage goes. The R2 clearly has a sharper image because of the resolution of the sensor being downsampled, and I love this for product shots, details, and social media posts. It does have a slight magenta shift over the S1RII and the S5 II, which can get kind of annoying when I have multiple cameras and we still use a lot of S5 IIs for our weddings. This just makes my post-production take a little bit longer, but it's not a huge deal if you're only matching 1 or 2 cameras. The other difference between these S1 cameras is the shadow retention. I can underexpose this camera by about 3 or 4 stops, and I have some pretty clean shadows. And even though the S1RII performs better in highlights, I feel like if you underexpose the R2 slightly, you can kind of compensate for that difference. As far as the upgrades in autofocus, IBIS, ProRes RAW, shutter door, exposure tools, and color fidelity, the S1RII and the S1RII are pretty neck and neck when it comes to user experience for video. This is my little message for Lumix. If you're listening, please, please, please come up with a firmware update for overheating and battery life. for the S1R2. I love both of these new S1 cameras, but when it comes to really hot days or really long takes, I'm rigging out the S1R2 just because I'm afraid of the overheating. To me, the S1R2 has one of my favorite images from any mirrorless camera right now. But between the horrible battery life and the thermal management issues, I would suggest the S1 II over the R2 for video. If you do more hybrid work, like let's say you do half of your work in photo and half in video, and you don't really do long takes, I think the S1R2 is a perfect camera for you. If you want to see how the S1R2 stacks up against the S5 II, click on this comparison video. Please like and subscribe and leave some comments if you want to see some tests. Until the next time.